I've been thinking a lot about how weird software development feels right now. I mean, there are more tools than ever, but somehow it also feels easier than ever to feel behind, right? Because every time you open Twitter or YouTube, there's a new editor, a new agent, a new workflow, cares at this, Windsurf that, anti-gravity, Claude code. I mean, so many, right? And nobody really tells you how to use them. They just tell you that you should, or at least that's the frustration that my audience have been expressing to me. So in this particular video, I wanted this video to feel more like a conversation and not the usual tutorials that we make, right? So not like a top 10 tools video, just me telling you how I actually work, what I've tested over time, what's failed, what's stuck, and what you can expect from this channel in 2026. Now, for the most part, I really didn't think much into the video part, so you may have to be staring at my YouTube channel for about 5 minutes straight. I hope you forgive me for that bit, but I think you're going to enjoy the value that you get in this video. So I'm not claiming I have the perfect workflow. I don't think one exists, right? Vibe coding doesn't really have a standard. Anyone telling you it does is lying or selling you something. Although it does have protocols, that is a truly different situation if that's what you mean. But this is just my system built through the millions of frustrations I've had, the broken builds, wasted weekends, and shipping things that actually have had users, right? So in 2026, this channel is going to be very simple in its focus. We are going to build real software publicly as usual, from idea to deployment. We're also going to be having a bit of it where we talk about motivations. I mean, how people were able to scale their businesses, how some of them were able to start from the ground up and were able to launch, how many of them pivoted into certain ideas when their current ideas were failing. So that's ideally what we're going to be doing. And whenever we build software, like we usually do, more than half the time we give away the source code, right? And this time we're not talking about, I mean, strip demos, not AI generated boilerplate, not the kind of AI slop that people pass off as software products. I mean, actual production ready software, the kind that you would actually feel confident putting your name on it. Now, I want to be very clear, right? None of the tools that I'll be mentioning in this video are actually sponsored, right? So there's no paid promos, no affiliate links. It's just things that have worked for me that I am talking about, right? So if that's the kind of content that you're really into, I mean, building seriously and learning as well, you probably enjoy what's coming. So I suggest that you give us a like and subscribe as well, right? Now, most of the time when people hear the term vibe coding, they think it means turning your brain off and letting the AI cook. But that's not the case, and that has never been my experience, right? For me, vibe coding is more about, should I say, momentum. So it's about staying in flow long enough that the ideas that I have turn into commits, and then those commits I can turn into shipped features, right? So actually building things that work, not the absolute slop that it gives. So AI doesn't replace the thinking, it just replaces the friction and everything else that surrounds it, right? Now, for the most part, one of the things that I learned the hard way is that these models will hallucinate confidently if you let them. The emphasis on confidence, right? So if there's no context, the model fills in the gaps and it doesn't tell you it's guessing, it just sounds short. So that's how you end up debugging lots, lots and lots of AI code. Then there's something else that people rarely talk about. That's typically one of the reasons why you keep getting AI slop. It's a term known as context rot, right? And what that means is, well, it's just as your code base grows, right, and as the conversations get longer, the quality of responses can slowly degrade, right? So it's I'm sure you've had an experience with this. If you've had, I want you to leave a comment in the comment section telling us how it happened. Now, the reason I mitigate that, the way I mitigate that more than half the time is I always make sure I write my own PRD. Well, I don't do it, ChatGPT does, but I supervise it. So that's basically me writing my own PRD. So I always make sure I have one, even for small projects, unless there are things that I could typically one shot or I don't really need it or it's not for work, right? So the PRD isn't merely just for me alone, it's for the AI as well. Now, once my thinking is clear and the AI is aligned with my thinking, the tools simply just fall in line with it. So, no context equals complete hallucinations, whereas clear context also means you get to leverage the tools better, right? Another thing that changed everything for me is also building iteratively. So, more about one feature at a time. You make sure you roll out one feature and then you move on to the next one end to end, right? Now, this helps you reduce bugs, right? And more than half the time, right now, I think everybody is embracing MCPs. So I use MCPs a lot. And if you don't know what an MCP is, it simply means Model Context Protocol. And the simplest way to think about it is it's basically just let your model understand your project better, right? So a simple example would be like, say I am building an app. I don't have to constantly be saying, here's my auth logic every time, or here's this, here's that. The model already knows where it lives and how to connect with it. So in one of my previous videos, I talked about it in great detail, but let's revisit that just to clear the air. So what an MCP basically is, well, in that video I talked about MCPs using Siri as an example, right? So say you have Siri. Everybody understands how Siri works, right? So you have an iPhone and then you call Siri. Hey Siri, set an alarm for me. It's able to do that for you. Hey Siri, create a reminder. Hey Siri, do this, do that. Call this person, call that person. It's completely able to do that, right? Now, one thing that Siri will not be able to do, say when you ask Siri to call somebody, the entire span of the responsibilities of Siri is that it just puts the call in and then that is it, right? But what if you could have Siri put in a call and say when the person does not answer the phone, Siri then leaves a voicemail, and then after the voicemail it hangs up, and after it hangs up it tells you the entire thing that it did, like it gives you the context of the entire thing that it did, the message it's left, all of those. Or you could simply just have Siri send somebody an email, do this, like specific tasks, right? That is basically what an MCP is. So it gives a model like extra capabilities to reach beyond the usual way of its accessibility, should I say. I hope this understanding clears the air a bit. Most obviously, I'm going to have a video later on that I talk in the about how MCPs work. But today, I just want to show you the MCPs that I use. Ideally, there are five constant ones that I keep. Number one, I use GitHub because I most definitely do need version control. I think version control is non-negotiable, especially because I work with people more than half the time, and then they need to be seeing my work. They need to be able to pull it. I mean, you understand how GitHub works. Another thing I use is netlify, because when I'm pushing to GitHub, well, I'll talk about that later. So I use netlify as well. I also use render, and as well I use supabase. And most definitely for testing, these people have sponsored previous videos before, but specifically for this video they are not sponsoring, although this may account for some bias. But I really think their tool is incredible. That's why I keep using it. I use testsprite MCP, right? So for once I push my code to GitHub, I can simply just push it on to Netlify. Netlify for deployments of my front end, render for my back end, and I don't have to fight infrastructure all the time. Now, Supabase typically just handles my database, my auth, all of those stuff. The reason I love Supabase so much is because it gives you a couple of things just straight out of the box. Things like auth. You don't have to be struggling with thought. You don't have to roll your own. They just simply give it to you, right? And then TestSprite for testing my application. TestSprite is more like a QA that you can use for all of your work, right? So you every time you are pushing code to production, you know that it is fully code that works. It is not slop. It is actual code that can stand. I mean, that is ready for production, right? Now, what's interesting is that a lot of experienced developers are now embracing this whole AI, this whole vibe coding thing, right? And are quietly adopting part of or most of this in their workflow. Specifically, what I want to say is now, I'm sure you know who Linus Torvalds is. This is typically one of the godfathers, one of the OGs of this industry, right? Linus Torvalds basically spearheaded the creation of the Linux OS. And now even he has adopted vibe coding. He tweeted recently how he uses specifically anti-gravity to do simple tasks. I mean, not even if it is not entirely their workflow, they have adopted it in some way. So you know that this thing is not as bad as we've made it look like, right? So people are actually embracing vibe coding. So yeah, 2026 for me is more about clarity, more shipping, better systems. And ideally, if you want to learn how to use these tools without losing your fundamentals, or if this is becoming your fundamentals, and if you want to build real software alongside me, I greatly encourage you guys to subscribe, share this post. I mean, like them, leave a comment. And yeah, the year is going to be super fun. See you.